Доброго ранку.
Good morning, dear colleagues. We start our briefing. The topic is presentation of the interim report of the mission of the World Congress of Ukrainians on the parliamentary elections in Ukraine. Our guest is Yevhen Cholii, head of the international mission of the Ukrainian World Congress on election observation of 2019 in Ukraine. Welcome. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Yevhen Cholii, and I am the head of the Ukrainian World Congress International Observation Mission to Ukraine's 2019 elections. I have the pleasure to present to you the interim report of the mission of the Ukrainian World Congress, or UWC. The UWC is the international coordinating body for Ukrainian communities in the diaspora, representing the interests of over 20 million Ukrainians. The UWC has a network of member organizations and ties with Ukrainians in over 60 countries. Founded in 1967, the UWC was recognized in 2003 by the United Nations Economic and Social Council as a non-governmental organization with a special consultative status, and obtained in 2018 participatory status as an international non-governmental organization with the Council of Europe. On 11th of July 2019, the Prosecutor General of the Russian Federation declared the UWC to be an undesirable organization that constitutes a threat to the constitutional framework and security of the Russian Federation. Since 1999, the UWC has deployed election observation missions to monitor all presidential and parliamentary elections in Ukraine. On the 24th of January 2019, the UWC launched its international observation mission to Ukraine's 2019 elections. The UWC mission monitored and issued 5 reports on the presidential elections in Ukraine, which took place on the 31st of March 2019 and on the 21st of April 2019 in Ukraine. These reports are posted on the UWC website. The UWC mission will also monitor the early parliamentary elections scheduled for the 21st of July 2019 and will focus on the following. First, commenting on the legal framework of the electoral process, particularly on Ukraine's domestic legislation and legal norms, as well as Ukraine's commitments to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and the Council of Europe, as well as other international standards for democratic elections. Second, intelligence gathering on Ukraine's preparedness to ensure democratic elections and to counter possible foreign interference, including cyber attacks, manipulations, and violations of the electoral process. Third, multilingual media monitoring around the world in order to detect any attempts to undermine Ukraine during this election year, including the integrity of Ukraine's electoral process and the legitimacy of its democracy. And the fourth one, observing the electoral process in the days leading up to and on election day, as well as the counting and transfer of ballot boxes to the Central Election Commission from polling stations in Ukraine and Ukrainian diplomatic missions around the world where voting will take place. The UWC mission has mobilized 125 long-term observers from 28 countries, namely Australia, Azerbaijan, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Greece, Estonia, Spain, Italy, Kazakhstan, Canada, Latvia, Lebanon, Mozambique, Moldova, Germany, United Arab Emirates, Poland, Serbia, Slovakia, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the United States of America, Ukraine, France, Croatia, Czech Republic, and Switzerland. The UWC long-term observers will do media monitoring for any evidence of disinformation in 20 languages, namely English, Azerbaijan, Arab language, Bosnian, Holland, Greece, Estonian, Italian, Kazakh, Latvian, German, Polish, Portuguese, Russian, Serbian, Slovak, Ukrainians, French, and Czech languages. And the UWC mission also registered with Ukraine's Central Election Commission 143 short-term observers from 30 countries, namely Australia, Argentina, Belgium, Belarus, Bulgaria, Greece, Georgia, Estonia, Israel, Italy, Kazakhstan, Canada, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, the Netherlands, Germany, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Serbia, Slovenia, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the United States of America, Turkey, France, Croatia, Czech Republic, Switzerland, and Sweden. The UWC mission is working closely with observation mission of its member organization, Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, which registered 32 short-term observers. Combined, the two missions registered 175 short-term observers. By its composition, and we thank our organization, the Ukrainian youth organization, that they provided a lot of short-term observers. By its composition and scope, the UWC mission is unique since it includes long-term observers who will carry out media monitoring outside of Ukraine, and short-term observers who will monitor the electoral process not only in Ukraine, but also at Ukrainian diplomatic missions abroad. The UWC long-term observation team began its activity on the 2nd March 2019 with a training session conducted by experts from Stokefake and the Kiev-Mohyla Academy. The long-term media monitoring ahead of the early parliamentary elections started on the 14th of June 2019. UWC short-term observers will go through online and in-person training on the 20th of July 2019 in Kiev. The UWC mission will be issuing 4 reports on the early parliamentary election. Today, interim report. So and also preliminary report after the day of elections on the 22nd of July 2019, then media monitoring interim report on the 24th of July, and final report 8 weeks after the election. I have the honor to head the mission of UWC, and our team is Andrei Fatey, Deputy Head Zenon Patichny, Chief Observer, Vladimir Kistyanik, Coordinator of the mission, Dmitro Panchuk, Data Monitoring Analyst, Alexander Ryabtsev, Deployment Officer, and Irina Mitsak, Media Officer. The UWC mission is completely independent and does not receive any government funding. And the Central Election Commission of Ukraine has accredited 163 domestic observer organizations, which includes 17,187 observers. Furthermore, the Central Election Commission of Ukraine has accredited 21 international organizations, including 1,602 observers. By size, the UWC mission ranks 4th among the international observation missions. On the 7th of February this year, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine adopted a law that bans Russian citizens from participating as observers in the presidential and parliamentary elections. This has affected the UWC mission in that it has excluded citizens of the Russian Federation that are members of UWC member organizations from joining the UWC mission. The 2019 parliamentary election in Ukraine is taking place at a time when Ukraine, for the 5th consecutive year, has been struggling with the hybrid aggression of the Russian Federation, which invaded in the sovereign territory of Ukraine immediately after the Revolution of Dignity in 2014. During the Revolution of Dignity, the people of Ukraine stood up against the authoritarian regime of Viktor Yanukovych. Those events ended in sniper fire and the deaths of over 100 peaceful Ukrainian protesters on the 18th to 20th of February 2014 in Kiev. Following the Revolution of Dignity, Russian troops invaded and illegally occupied Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula under the pretext of protecting the Russian-speaking population of Ukraine. The next step of the Russian Federation was its military aggression in the Donetsk and Lugansk regions. The military aggression of the Russian Federation has affected almost 2 million residents of Crimea, as well as 4.4 million people in the east of Ukraine. The Russian aggression in the east of Ukraine has caused more than 13,000 deaths and 30,000 injuries. In addition, more than 1.5 million people have been forced to leave their homes. Since the beginning of Russian aggression in the Donbas, there are more than 2,500 people who became victims of exploding landmines, including over 240 children. And 1.9 million people continue being under the permanent threat of death or serious injuries from landmines. About 3.4 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance. 2.2 million require medical aid and 1.2 million experience food shortage. More than 120 political prisoners and 100 hostages continue to be illegally detained in the Russian Federation and in the occupied territories of the Donbas and Crimea. The conflict saw a new escalation on the 25th of November 2018, when the naval forces of the Russian Federation assaulted and seized 3 Ukrainian naval ships in the Kerch Strait region. 24 Ukrainian crew members continue being illegally kept in Russian prison, despite numerous appeals by the international community demanding their immediate and unconditional release. The human rights situation in the occupied Crimean Peninsula continues to deteriorate, and the Russian Federation blocks access to international humanitarian and human rights organizations. On the eve of the second round of the presidential election, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine recorded 20 ceasefire violations in the Donetsk Oblast and 50 ceasefire violations in the Lugansk Oblast. The Russian Federation also continues its disinformation campaign by portraying Ukraine as a failed state. The international community condemned the hybrid aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine and provides it with financial, humanitarian, and military assistance. Since the last parliamentary election in Ukraine in 2014, the following landmark events have occurred: coming into force of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, as well as the deep and comprehensive free trade area, adoption of a visa-free regime for Ukrainian citizens traveling to the Schengen zone, as well as to Chile, Albania, Costa Rica, United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay. Signing and coming into force of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, signing of the Israel-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, granting of a Thomas of autocephaly to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and adoption of constitutional amendments reflecting Ukraine's strategic goal of becoming a member of NATO and the European Union. UWC mission wishes success to the governmental structures and law enforcement bodies of Ukraine in order to provide democratic, transparent, and fair parliamentary elections, and hopes that Ukrainian voters will use their constitutional right to elect People's Deputies of Ukraine. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready for your questions. Andrei Megel, Info News Outlet. Thank you for this wonderful presentation and your overview of situation in Ukraine. You said about the decision of Prosecutor's Office of Russian Federation concerning the UWC. Could you comment on this? So my comment is this decision is weird. It is weird because the Ukrainian World Congress deals with such matters as support of Ukrainian Greek and Catholic Church, got to the status of Patriarchy, And we supported the measures concerning provision of Thomas to Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and we support European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine, and we protect the rights of Ukrainians no matter where they live, and we believe that this work is the work of democratic non-governmental organization. That's why it's a surprise for us that any country may believe such work where we implement European values, that they consider it as a threat to the regime. Moreover, this decision is significantly problematic for our organizations and people who cooperate with the Ukrainian World Congress in Russian Federation, because this cooperation may result in legal responsibility and include fines and confiscation of property and even imprisonment. That's why we believe that this decision was taken by the Russian Federation in order to separate the Ukrainian World Congress from its member organizations in the Russian Federation, and to prevent further cooperation between our organization and the Ukrainian diaspora in the Russian Federation. That needs really support and cooperation with Ukrainians around the globe and with our organization. About elections, one more question. You said that out of 28 countries, observers arrived to monitor elections. What challenges they face? Could you comment on the situation? I mean, their stay in Ukraine. I believe that those observers who come to Ukraine, they come here in order to help protect democratic order and to ensure that parliamentary elections be democratic, as were presidential elections this year. And they contribute, and their work is really hard, and they show their support not just by words but also by their actions, that we are integrated part of the Ukrainian people, and we prove it by our activity. If there are no more questions, we thank Yevgeny, and we end our briefing. Thank you very much.